So the Switch OLED came out last week. It boasts a better screen, better speakers, and a better kickstand. But are these things actually better? And is there possibly anything else that may be improved with this system?
Okay, now that I've had more hands-on time with this thing than I did during my initial impressions video just taking it out of the box, I have several more insights about the console. We'll start with a bit of a breakdown of the Switch lineup in general. This console is technically the fourth model of the Nintendo Switch. We have the original Day 1 model, dubbed V1, which had more of a white box. I no longer have the box because frick boxes, me and my homies hate boxes. So instead, enjoy a poorly photoshopped version of me holding the box. A couple years after launch, we also got the red box Switch, dubbed V2, which I don't own, so yeah, Photoshop. Around the same time we got the Switch Lite, the portable-only model which yeeted the removable controllers and HD rumble in favor of a sleeker, more sturdy-feeling design. Along with the D-pad, they refused to give us an option for on the main systems. And if you thought I was done with this bit, you would be wrong. The V2 and Lite have an updated system on a chip, or SoC, or for the layman, the system CPU. The update does not improve the performance in any perceivable way for gameplay. All games run pretty much identically across all of the Switch systems. But the chip is more power efficient, which means lower heat output and lower battery consumption, which in turn means better battery life. Which means you will not see any noticeable bump in battery life or thermal performance going from a red box Switch or Switch Lite. But you will, however, see an improvement if you're like me and moving from an early model Switch. Not only due to the improved chip, but also because it's an old battery that, if well used, will likely already be less than the original estimates of playtime for that device. Okay, enough about the virtually unchanged internals compared to the V2. Let's go over the list of what Nintendo themselves used to try to push this system. This beefcake kickstand is far and away the better of the two. Here on the old models, you just breathe in a 5-mile radius of the device and it decides to play dead in case you're a predator. Not to mention the fact that if you just look at it funny, it ejects itself off as a defense mechanism. The single angle was only a good angle sometimes, and by sometimes I mean virtually never. Now, if you take a look at this gorgeous new stand, it fixes basically everything wrong with the old one. The stand now spans the entire width of the system, which means I can finally awkwardly jab with my finger and it doesn't fall over. Huzzah! The kickstand now works at basically any angle, where you can just set the angle and it holds its place. There are two small rubber feet here on the bottom of the system to help prevent it from sliding like a kid on a slip and slide in the summer, which further helps with the ability to jab it with my finger.
Oh, finally.
So the kickstand is better. Cool. But statistically speaking, the use of the kickstand is a minority compared to playing docked and handheld. And I'm sure someone is already commenting about how worthless that upgrade is for them, as though their opinion is the only one that matters. That's right, I'm talking about you, Phil. No, not you, the other Phil. Yeah, you, I'm watching you. Anyway, one of the features they showcase is better speakers, which at first I really didn't believe, but during a live A/B testing with the same titles, I can say that the volume may be slightly louder, but more noticeably, they do produce a more full sound, now being a little bit less tinny and including more bass. Though, to be honest, the difference isn't so much that you really be able to notice without directly comparing them side by side. So while this is a nice upgrade, it's not even as good as the kickstand that continues to let me jab my finger into the screen. So that brings us to, well, the screen. And as you would think, this is the main selling point of the system. And let me say, it's a very nice upgrade. It will probably be a little bit difficult to capture, so you may just have to take my word for it, but it is beautiful. Now, it isn't the best screen I've used. This thing is still 720p, but it is better in a few seemingly small but pretty significant ways. Firstly, the screen gets a size bump from 6.2 to 7 inches, which again, doesn't seem like much, but like they say, size does matter. And this isn't an exception. In hand, the size difference is quite noticeable. It fills out much more of the full console size, causing the old screen to feel like that of a cheap tablet. Or the old iPads, which is further pushed by the fact that the standard model screen is not laminate, where the new OLED one is. This means on the old model, there's a gap between the screen and the top touch panel layer, one that is almost as large as the gap between Willem Dafoe's teeth.
But you can't do this to me.
Not to mention, the panel is now glass.
They did it, boys! Nintendo is now reaching the modern era of touchscreen technology! Woo!
Oh, by the way, on top of this glass panel, there is a protective film that looks like a screen protector. It is an anti-shatter film that will prevent the screen from spreading glass across your floor, like one of those chip-resistant platters should it break. All of these changes are nice, but the big one is kind of the new model name, OLED. Organic light-emitting diode technology really is quite fascinating. But frankly, we here at Gamers Charisma are too smooth-brained to understand how it works, let alone explain it. But we can tell you what makes it good. Simply put, when something is black, it truly is black. With older LCD technology, the entirety of the screen was lit, and anything black was basically just doing the technology equivalent of closing the blinds in your windows. It does help block light, but some of it does peek through, like the stalker in my window.
Wait, that can't be right.
For OLED, on the other hand, each individual pixel is its own light source, which means if something is black, that pixel can be fully turned off to give a true rich black. Because of this, the dynamic range on the screen is wider, allowing the colors to pop much more. This is also helped by the new vivid color option found only in the settings menu for the OLED devices. This setting does help to really make the colors vibrant, but in some instances may cause a bit of oversaturation if the game was already very highly saturated to begin with. One of the best games to help showcase the new screen is actually the game that was released alongside it, Metroid Dread. So, how does it really look compared to the old LCD? Well,
Hey, real quick, if you're liking the video so far, be sure to boop the like button as it will let the algorithm know you like it, as well as help me gauge what content you like best so I can try to create more content like it. Thanks.
Okay, so it looks great in normal indoor lighting conditions, but how does it fare in, say, direct sunlight? I'd say it does a little better. Honestly, I'm not sure if it's the OLED helping with visibility outdoors, or if it's more to do with the screen now being laminate, which does typically help assist with visibility overall. So right off the bat, the overall theme for the other things I'll discuss is this: overall build quality. To start off, the plastic of the main unit definitely feels like they've changed up the formulation to make it more sturdy. It feels like it also has a different texture to it, but that is a bit difficult to gauge, as even though our house has several Switch units, most are fairly heavily used at this point, which usually ends up smoothing out plastic over time. The volume and power buttons are slightly different, which I kind of like the fact that the power button is now just a little bit more recessed. They all still function identically and overall make no difference to feel or use whatsoever. So I'll just gloss right past that and onto the top vent. Now, on the older model, this vent was kind of an issue, especially on the very early models. Overall, the plastic on the early models had issues where they would just disintegrate to the point where my day one Switch, I had to replace the entire outer housing due to it just slowly cracking and breaking apart. And this was even with the fact that it mainly stayed in the dock most of the time, so it wasn't like it was taking a beating. There's also the fact that for a device that will be getting used by children, these gaps in the vent are extremely large. I mean, I can't fit my sausage finger into it, but kids would likely be able to get their fingers in here and potentially damage the heatsink just below. There's also the fact that the vent is built in such a way that it only has this slim line of plastic to really give it any rigidity without relying on the backplate to hold it together. The new vent is a much better design, now being a part of the back piece with much more plastic structure around it, which should help prevent the previous issues. The Joy-Con rails are definitely updated in some way, given that they are now held on with fewer screws, and with first use, they do feel like they may be partially improved. The wriggle seems to be roughly the same, though sliding them in and out does feel a little bit smoother. Weighing the systems without the Joy-Con attached, my old V1 weighs in at 296 grams, and the new OLED model clocks in at 324 grams, for a whopping difference of, drumroll please, 28 grams. Roughly the weight of 2 CDs, so just stack these on top of the standard model and bam! Now you can know how heavy a Switch OLED is. Now just take those CDs and throw them in the trash, because no one should still be using these in 2021. Oddly enough, they decided to make the entire front housing plastic glossy as well, which does look pretty nice and does help the screen further blend into the system, but it does end up being a bit more of a fingerprint magnet and over time will likely show scratches more than the original matte plastic. So if you don't already own a Nintendo Switch and are wanting to pick one up, then I would definitely say go for the OLED model. It's better in enough ways that I would recommend spending the extra money just to get those improved features. The bigger screen with better colors, the better build quality, and the improved kickstand are much needed additions to the Switch lineup. Even for handheld only, I would say go with the OLED rather than the Lite just for the screen, if not also for the fact that you have the option to dock the OLED if you want to in the future, which can't be done with the Lite. Now if you already own a Switch system, however, things get a little bit more complicated. The improved features are definitely neat, but for most are likely not features that warrant a whole new system, though it may be worth it if you can find a place to trade in your old model for a good price. And frankly, no matter what, I would ignore the Switch Lite unless you absolutely cannot spend the extra money on either of the mainline systems. Overall, the Switch OLED is a fantastic addition to the Switch family, but it definitely won't be something for everyone. It plays the same games, and for those who mostly play from the dock, you would get the same experience from the cheaper LCD model anyways. The improved color and screen size are great, but only if you intend to play somewhat in handheld mode. Otherwise, you may just want to stick with the LCD model for now.
So what do you guys think about the Switch OLED? Have you already picked one up, or maybe planning on getting it? Or are you just not interested at this time? Let me know in the comments below. Cyber out.